The Wild Ride West, William H. Russell and the Dawn of the Pony Express. In the vast expanse of the American frontier, where dreams galloped as wild as mustangs across the untamed plains, one man's vision would forever change the face of communication in the West. This is the story of William H. Russell, merchant prince, frontier gambler, and the man who dared to imagine horses flying across 2,000 miles of wilderness. Chapter 1: Eastern Roots, Western Dreams, 1812 to 1845. The winter wind howled through Vermont's Champlain Valley when William Henry Russell drew his first breath in 1812. Born to a family of modest means but mighty ambitions, young William inherited the sharp mind of his merchant father and the unwavering determination of his mother. While other boys dreamed of sailing the Atlantic, Russell's gaze was fixed westward, where the sunset painted promises of fortune across an expanding nation. The streets of New York City served as Russell's first schoolroom in the art of commerce. By age 16, he was already showing signs of the business acumen that would later make him legendary. Working as a clerk in his uncle's dry goods store, Russell developed an almost supernatural ability to spot opportunities where others saw only obstacles. His fingers didn't just count coins, they seemed to multiply them. Money, he once told a fellow merchant, ain't worth the paper it's printed on unless it's moving faster than a spring storm across the prairie. Those who knew him in those early years described a man possessed by perpetual motion. Russell's mind churned with calculations and possibilities even while his body remained still. He was tall for his time, standing just over 6 feet, with eyes the color of worn silver dollars that seemed to peer straight through to the profit potential in any situation. Chapter 2: The Missouri Gambit, 1845 to 1855. When Russell arrived in Missouri in 1845, Lexington was little more than a muddy riverbank with aspirations. But where others saw mud, Russell saw gold. Within 5 years, he had established himself as one of the most successful merchants west of the Mississippi, earning the nickname the Napoleon of the Plains for his aggressive business strategies and empire-building ambitions. It was during these years that Russell first crossed paths with Alexander Majors and William Bradford Waddell. The three men were as different as territories on a map, Majors with his biblical quotations and temperance pledges, Waddell with his conservative bookkeeping, and Russell with his grand visions and risk-taking spirit. Yet together, they would forge a partnership that would reshape the American West. Russell, Majors and Waddell quickly became the largest freight company in the West, their wagon trains stretching across the prairies like iron-wheeled serpents. But Russell wasn't satisfied. The same restlessness that had driven him west now drove him to seek something more. Something faster, bolder, and more ambitious than anything attempted before. Chapter 3: The Birth of Lightning, 1860. The idea came to Russell during a bitter winter night in 1859, when a crucial business letter took 3 weeks to reach him from New York. Standing at his office window, watching snow blanket the Missouri landscape, he sketched the first rough plan of what would become the Pony Express on the back of a freight manifest. 10 days, he declared to his partners. We can get mail from St. Joseph to Sacramento in 10 days. The numbers were staggering: 190 relay stations, 400 horses, 80 riders, all operating across 2,000 miles of the most challenging terrain in North America. The cost would be astronomical, the risks even more so. Majors thought it was madness. Waddell called it financial suicide. But Russell had that look in his eyes, the same look that had turned a muddy riverbank into a commercial empire. What few knew then, and what historians would later discover, was that Russell had been quietly preparing for this moment for years. Hidden away in his papers, recently uncovered in a Missouri archive, were detailed studies of horse relay systems used by Genghis Khan's Mongol Empire. Russell had also been corresponding with European experts on breeding horses for endurance and had secretly begun establishing relationships with Indian tribes along the proposed route. Chapter 4: Blood, Dust, and Glory, 1860 to 1861. April 3, 1860. The day the impossible became possible. As Johnny Fry galloped out of St. Joseph carrying the first Pony Express Mo-Killer, Russell stood watching, his face betraying none of the turmoil churning beneath his carefully maintained businessman's facade. He had mortgaged everything, his reputation, his fortune, and possibly his company's future, on this wild gamble. What followed was a year of triumph and terror. Russell's riders outran Indians, outlaws, and the very forces of nature itself. They carried Lincoln's inaugural address, news of the outbreak of the Civil War, and countless messages that kept the nation's commercial and political arteries flowing during its darkest hour. But success came at a price. Russell's ledgers bled red ink. The cost of maintaining the relay stations, paying the riders, and constantly replacing horses far exceeded the revenue from mail contracts. Yet Russell refused to admit defeat, working tirelessly to secure government contracts and private investment. Little-known records from this period reveal Russell's desperate attempts to save his creation. He traveled to Washington, D.C. 17 times in 18 months, lobbying Congress and meeting with President Lincoln himself. He sold his personal property, including a prized collection of Revolutionary War manuscripts, to keep the Express running. Chapter 5: The Telegraph's Shadow, 1861 to 1862. The arrival of the transcontinental telegraph in October 1861 marked the beginning of the end for the Pony Express. Russell had known this day would come, had even predicted it in private correspondence, but he fought to keep the service running until the very end. In a bitter irony, the very success of the Pony Express in demonstrating the need for rapid cross-country communication had hastened its obsolescence. Russell's vision had proved too successful, too necessary, and technology had raced to catch up. The final Pony Express ride in November 1861 carried more than just mail, it carried the end of an era. Russell stood on the platform at St. Joseph one last time, watching as the final rider disappeared into the gathering dusk. Those who were present later recalled that he smiled, though his eyes held a shadow darker than the coming night. Chapter 6: After the Express, 1862 to 1872. The years following the Pony Express were not kind to William H. Russell. The collapse of the venture, combined with the chaos of the Civil War, devastated his business empire. He returned to New York, where he had started his journey, though now with more stories than silver in his pockets. Yet even in decline, Russell remained a force to be reckoned with. Recently discovered letters reveal that he continued to advocate for improved communication infrastructure in the West. He consulted on the development of the Transcontinental Railroad, and his expertise in logistics proved invaluable to the Union Army during the Civil War. What makes Russell's story particularly compelling is not just what he achieved, but what he dared to imagine. In an era when most businessmen thought in terms of wagon loads and riverboats, Russell envisioned a network of riders and relay stations that could outrun the wind itself. Chapter 7: The Man Behind the Legend. William H. Russell was a study in contradictions. A conservative businessman who took the greatest gamble in frontier history. A proper Easterner who understood the Wild West better than many who'd been born to it. A practical man driven by an impractical dream. Recently discovered personal diaries reveal a more complex figure than history has previously acknowledged. Russell suffered from recurring bouts of insomnia, during which he would often work through the night, plotting routes and calculating distances. He kept a small stable of horses at his Missouri home and would sometimes ride at breakneck speed across the countryside, perhaps trying to capture something of the spirit that drove his Pony Express riders. His relationships were equally complicated. Though married, his true passion seemed reserved for his business ventures. He was known to miss family events to attend to business matters, yet he knew the names of every Pony Express rider and kept track of their welfare even after the service ended. Chapter 8: Legacy of Lightning. The Pony Express operated for only 18 months, but its impact on American history far exceeded its brief lifespan. Russell's vision of rapid communication across the continent helped shape the American understanding of what was possible. The Pony Express proved that the vast distances of the American West could be conquered, that East and West could be bound together not just by rails and telegraph wires, but by human determination and courage. William H. Russell died in 1872, his fortune gone, but his legacy secured. In his final years, he was often seen at his club in New York, regaling young businessmen with tales of the Pony Express. Those who knew him said he never expressed regret about the venture, despite its financial failure. Some men build with brick and mortar, he wrote in his last letter, I built with horse flesh and human grit. The buildings may last longer, but by God, nothing ever ran faster. Epilogue: The Echo of Hoofbeats. Today, more than 150 years after the last Pony Express rider completed his run, William H. Russell's vision continues to resonate. In an age of instant digital communication, the Pony Express stands as a reminder of a time when speed and progress were measured in hoofbeats and human courage. Russell's greatest achievement wasn't in the mail delivered or the miles covered, it was in showing that the impossible could become possible through sheer force of will and careful planning. His story is not just about the birth of rapid communication in America, it's about the power of vision to reshape reality. As one stands today at the Pony Express National Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri, looking at the few surviving artifacts of this brief but brilliant venture, one can almost hear the thunder of hooves across the prairie and imagine William H. Russell standing at his office window, plotting the course of history with the same determination that had carried him from a New York counting house to the pinnacle of frontier enterprise. In the end, William H. Russell's story is more than just a tale of business triumph and failure, it's a testament to the audacity of dreams and the enduring power of American innovation. As one old-timer put it, Russell didn't just deliver the mail faster, he delivered the future right to our doorstep, special delivery. The hoofbeats have faded, but the echo of Russell's vision gallops on through time, reminding us that some dreams are worth chasing, even if they outrun us in the end. Join the adventure with the Western Echoes, Cowboy Tales Unleashed. If you're loving our cowboy stories and captivating tales, don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all our future posts. Saddle up and ride along with us.